2020 order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law. This public meeting of the Town of Bolton Conservation Commission is being conducted via remote participation. No in-person attendance of members of the public will be permitted, but the public can access this meeting while in progress by Zoom Video Communications, Inc. And members of the public attending this meeting virtually will be allowed to make comments if they wish to do so during the portion of the hearing designated for public comment by telephone, cell phone, or personal computer using Zoom. As always, we have some guidelines. Please utilize the chat or raise hand function if you wish to address the board. People will remain on mute until they are asked to address the board, and participants are required to display your first and last name if you don't mind for your username. And per our tradition, we will start with a roll call. I am Brian Barabee.
Bill Brandvold.
Oh. I heard Bill Payne and Paul Brandvold.
Correct.
Okay.
Jillian Guasanos.
And Jim Garrity.
And Rebecca Longbaugh.
I almost have a full commission tonight. That's great. All right. So picking up from last time, do I need to officially open a COC, a request for a COC? I do not, correct?
No, you do not. You can just open the discussion.
Okay, in that
Just
case,
by that statement.
yeah, on that said, no. All right, so the commission will now discuss a request for a certificate of compliance from the, Department of Capital and something maintenance. What is DCAMM, Rebecca? I'm so sorry.
To be honest, I don't remember off the top of my head, but Zana is here and she might be able to.
It's Division of Capital Assets Management and Maintenance.
Thank you.
There you go. Thank you.
All right. So a discussion for DCAMM Furbish Mill project, which was DEP file number 112-0700, temporary spillway and culvert replacement. Excuse me. It sounds like somebody from DPW is here, but can we get, do you want to give us an update on the work that was done? And Rebecca, have you had a chance to go out and actually conduct a site visit? And if so, did everything appear to be in compliance to you?
Yep. So DCAM representatives and GCA, their engineering firm, excuse me, representatives are here as well. And we were able to go out on site last week, I believe, if not the week prior, visit the site. The last couple things they had to do from the site visit report I gave to the commission was, it was noted that the knotweed was still very prevalent in the area that they had altered as part of the temporary spillway. So they went back and removed everything. When I was there, that's obviously a continual maintenance item, but they did remove it all when I was present. Some may have grown back or sprouted within that time frame if they haven't had people back out there. But as far as the structures, DPW from the town had been out to look at the culvert that was on town land. So as you come up into the property, the access road goes over town-owned conservation land and then enters into the Commonwealth property, or the DCAM property to the rear, which has the pond and the spillway. So the culvert, there were no significant issues with that. There was gravel added to the roadway. They did place landscape matting underneath in the event the commission didn't want to leave it there, but I feel it stabilizes the access road. Then further upgradient at the temporary spillway that has been installed. It's functioning properly. And they've been maintaining it as well regarding removing any material that the beaver does place in the old spillway. So it is a much larger area. It takes much more time for the beavers to dam it up if they're going to. So from what they proposed to where they are, we received the report from GZA as well that stated that everything had been done, excuse me, in compliance with the order.
Okay. So all of that said, it sounds like the project was completed in the manner it was described. Do you see any reason why we wouldn't issue a certificate of compliance for this project at this time. And well, as I said, any commission members have any comments and or questions? None. Any members of the public here this evening to comment on this or have any questions regarding this project? And again, I'm seeing none. Okay. In that case, I'd like to make a motion that the Conservation Commission issue a certificate of compliance for DEP file number 112-0700. Do I hear a second for issuing?
Second.
All those in favor, starting with Bill,
Aye.
Paul,
Aye.
Jillian,
Aye.
Jim,
Aye.
and Rebecca, I am an aye as well.
Thank you.
We're out of time.
And I also do want to just thank everyone for being flexible in the fact that we didn't have a quorum at the last meeting and that we were able to coordinate this. So both to the commission members and the applicants, I appreciate both your patience and your time this evening.
Thank you.
I know we have about 2 minutes before we can open the next hearing. Is there anything we want to go over
We could
quickly? I
do
know
minutes.
we can vote minutes at the next meeting, right? Or I did not, I was gonna say, I haven't really had a chance to look through the meeting, the minutes, so
Okay.
if it's all right by other commission members, we can vote on it at our next meeting. I think we're pretty close to 7:10. I was gonna say, any of the updates you want to go through quickly, Rebecca?
Sure. So the update for the Bolton Trails Connectivity Improvement Project is that we got an email correspondence from the grant program, and they're going to be reaching out within the next couple weeks to start finalizing and starting that process formally. So that we were specifically advised not to do any match prior to the contracts being signed. They're still highlighting that. But that will be ramping up soon. Then we have, that is for the different crossings throughout the conservation parcels. Then we have the Nashua River Communities Resilient Lands Management Project going on. If you have interest in the Lawns and Landscapes Task Group, you are more than welcome to reach out and we'll have you in contact with our consultants. We're going to be doing some site visits soon. And continuing conversations on turf and ornamental landscapes and managing them in the lens of climate resiliency and nature-based solutions. And quickly in the last minute, we have the volunteer land steward position still open. And then the open space and recreation plan subcommittee, we're going to start pushing for more advertisement for that as we hope to start and kick off our update to the OSRP plan come December.
Right. Thank you.
Mhm.
We have it. All right, so we have it scheduled for 7:10, right? Sorry, I had the older one. I think it's 7:50.
Yes. Yep.
Okay. Well, we'll have to give it up according to my watch. All right, so excuse me. So the Bolton Conservation Commission will now continue the public hearing under Mass General Law, Chapter 131, Section 40, and the Bolton Bylaw, Chapter 233, to consider a notice of intent for 472 Sugar Road, DEP file number 112-0714. Just to give an update on this one, if I am correct, we made most of our questions, comments, and recommendations at the last meeting. We had left this agenda item open so that we could draft a final order, which Rebecca was kind enough to do. I didn't have any issues with it as it was drafted. Are there any outstanding questions or comments from members of the commission this evening? Not seeing any. Right. Is anybody from the public here to comment on the notice of intent for 472 Sugar Road this evening? And again, I'm not seeing anyone. All right. All right. In that case, I was to say, is the applicant here or a representative for the applicant here? Okay. And yeah, didn't really need to be. Okay. In that case, I'm going to make a motion that we close the public hearing for 472 Sugar Road, DEP file number 112-0714. Do I hear a second for closing?
Second.
All those in favor, starting with Bill,
Aye.
Paul,
Aye.
Jillian,
Aye.
Jim,
Aye.
and Rebecca, I am an aye as well. All right, I'd like to make a motion that we issue an order of conditions for 472 Sugar Road as drafted and submitted at this evening's meeting. Do I hear a second for that?
Second.
All right, all those in favor, starting with Bill,
Aye.
Paul,
Aye.
Jillian,
Aye.
Jim,
Aye.
and Rebecca, I'm an aye as well. Rebecca, we have a few minutes. I'm not sure if you wanted to get into, I was gonna say what, I'm sorry, I have our older agenda.
So we have someone participating who is asking about Mallard Lane. And so it was left on the, sorry, I have up the wrong agenda. It was left on the agenda solely for the purpose of noting, and thank you for catching that, of noting that it had to be re-advertised due to lack of quorum at the last meeting. And due to it needing to be re-advertised, it has to be in the paper for 7 days. So it was re-advertised and will be on the October 4th agenda. So next Tuesday, which is a regularly scheduled Concom meeting. So that, I know Kathleen just typed that in the chat. So I hope that answers your question. You're welcome. All right. I apologize, Brian. I think I cut you off there.
No, that's okay. I'm trying to pull up for I'm trying to find the most recent agenda. For some reason,
Yeah.
I have the old one, and I know I have.
I have it right here. Yes, so we left on. Yeah, so my apologize. We did leave on those two items. I forgot to take the time off of the posted agenda.
No, that's perfectly fine.
So those two items, so that's for 8 South Bolton Road as well, for anyone who may be in attendance for that. Mallard Lane and 8 South Bolton Road had to be re-advertised due to lack of quorum at the last meeting because they were new and going to be opened. So they had to be re-advertised for 7 days, and therefore they will be on the October 4th agenda. Would you?
Sorry, just pulling her up.
Yeah. So we
Yeah,
did
sorry.
close 578 at the last meeting. The meeting prior to the one we didn't have. So
Right,
you
right.
do have the ability to take that out of order and make a vote if you'd like, or I can talk about one of the conservation land items or the enforcement.
Sorry, I for some reason I don't, the agenda you sent today, I think is the old agenda.
Yes, I apologize.
No, that's perfectly fine. So what's our next hearing time? Do we have a 7:15?
The 7:15 was just the placeholder for Mallard Lane.
Oh,
and
gotcha. All right. So
7:30
that's the Mallard Lane, right, which we can't. So 7:30 is our next.
7:30 is also a placeholder for the 8, just as a reminder. And then so 7:45
Is going to be
should have been 472. So that's my fault.
No, that's all right. Okay, so our next actual hearing is until 7:45.
Yeah.
All right. Well, in that case, I think there's no reason not to take 578 out of order, right?
Yep.
That is the one. And if so we did close last time. I'm sorry, Rebecca, if you
We
could
did,
remind me again.
yes. So we closed the
Yep.
public hearing and then we were left to deliberate and issue a decision. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay.
Right. But did you have a chance to draft the order of conditions for this?
Yes, and that should have been sent in the email. So
Okay,
for
so
this,
that is, yeah, no, that is in the packet. I did see that one today. Sorry,
that's okay.
for some reason I can never find it when I need it. I don't think I had any questions regarding it as it was drafted. Any commission members have any comments or questions on 578 sugar?
So for 578, what basically in the draft it's saying is you have to decide whether to authorize the notice of intent or not, and then whether you approve as drafted or not. And then if you feel it meets the performance standards of the riverfront and of the adjacent upland resource area. Those are really the two, I think, major that are at play here. Or if it doesn't meet, that they provide enough mitigation to be considered not adversely impacting.
Sorry, I basically had to re-sign into my Google Drive. All right. I'm sorry, Rebecca. The first question you said that we really need to answer.
So well, I guess I said them backwards. So the first question is, do you feel that as drafted, as
Submitted?
submitted, thank you
Yep.
for that word,
No problem.
as submitted and revised, or as information has been submitted, that it meets the riverfront area standards and the Rivers Protection Act standards and the adjacent upland resource area performance standards, because those are the two most restrictive. And if it does, or if it does not, have they provided enough mitigation that it then does in fact meet it? Or can it be conditioned to meet it, which we've drafted the conditions in that light, obviously.
Right.
And then so the second aspect of it is if it meets those performance standards, or if the commission feels they're able to permit the work under those performance standards, then the commission will basically authorize the project as you typically do by accepting the notice of intent as most recently revised, and issue the order of conditions as drafted.
Gotcha. All right. So just looking through and refamiliarizing myself. I guess, and I'll put it out to other commission members, but I guess to me, it seems like they could meet the standards basically in how they were doing a lot of that runoff capture. It seems like they were almost over engineering to a certain extent to meet, the best possible standards or to meet current standards, especially with stormwater management. I would say as drafted, I'm relatively comfortable, but again, on that one, I'd kind of like to hear your thoughts, Rebecca, too. But first off, any members of the commission have any thoughts or comments? In that case, Rebecca, I'd love to hear your thoughts if you have any additional thoughts.
Sure. So upon review and obviously comments we heard from DEP, they do have to meet those riverfront area standards or riparian area standards, which they still are under the 10% that is contributed to the whole butternut development, because that still applies, because it was a lot originally part of that development as lot 12A. And then in the adjacent upland resource area, the regulations in the bylaw say limited or temporary disturbance and then to be restored. Now it's an area that is currently meadow or field, however you'd like to term it. I guess it's dependent on whether the commission feels that that is an altered surface or not. And do they meet those performance standards? And if they don't, are they providing enough mitigation, whether that be through stormwater infiltration, capture, or limiting? I know they're, again, proposing, as it was in the original permit, the fencing there to memorialize the limit of work. I think that's always beneficial and something that the commission in the past and pretty continuously looks on favorably. I know at the last meeting, and I put that in the conditions, that the area is to be maintained as meadow versus a lawn. The reality of that is it's next to the house. It will most likely be maintained as lawn within the fenced-in area. But I think just having that maintenance item addressed in the order of conditions encourage the property owner, and so that they understand and it's enforceable to maintain it as a meadow area versus a cut lawn, which has more benefits. I don't know if there's any questions or comments from the commission in that light, but again, looking at the adjacent upland resource area, that's really where I think it's most restrictive, where they seem to be meeting the performance standard for the front area.
Okay. And members of the public, we can't take public comment on this tonight because it's actually a closed hearing. It's actually been closed. All right, in that case, I'd like to make a motion that we issue an order of conditions for 578 Sugar Road, DEP file number 112-0714. As drafted and submitted at this evening's meeting. Do I hear a second for that?
Second.
Right. All those in favor, starting with Bill,
Aye.
Paul,
Aye.
Jillian,
Aye.
and Jim,
Aye.
and Rebecca, I'm an aye as well.
Can you just confirm whether or not you feel they have met, that they're meeting the performance standards of the adjacent upland resource area and or they're providing appropriate mitigation to meet it, just so we have that in the minutes?
I would say they're making appropriate mitigation to meet it with what's practicable in that area and would work. Other commission members have a thought one way or the other on that? All right. In that case, Rebecca, I would say, and I don't, do we need to memorialize it in any kind of vote, or is it possible just that it's on the public discussion?
I can just capture it in the public discussion. That's fine.
Yeah, that we think that while not completely meeting the standards, they are mitigating to an extent that we are comfortable. All right. Rebecca, when you are ready, do you want to get into one of the other updates?
Just finishing my note about that.
It's fine.
So I will go to would you like me to go with the conservation land updates or the enforcement?
Why don't you start with the enforcement? We can
Okay.
work down if we have time.
Sure. So the first enforcement order that was issued was 100 East End Road. This was prompted by, so our Viewpoint is our online permitting system. If you haven't filed a building permit, unfortunately, wetland permits are not on that, but obviously conservation signs off on things that are non-jurisdictional or things that have gone through you all already. So there was a tent permit on the Viewpoint docket, and that prompted a site visit because they had previously had work permitted, and this was different from what that was, although it was a temporary tent. So when I was out on site, I had observed that there was significant alteration to the area that was more of a loosely defined lawn meadow mixture is now being maintained as lawn, which the commission did not explicitly condition that in the past. The commission in the past had conditioned that a boulder line or split rail fence be put in place to memorialize the limit of work that's being approved as non-jurisdictional. So obviously work had been done within that area. The boulders were not there. And there was some vegetation removal around the pond, primarily invasive species removal. And I was able to compare that through images from past site visits, which was helpful. They had put an aerator in the pond. They had also, which is like a fountain basically because of the duckweed was choking it out. In addition to that, the areas that were not being maintained as lawn were dug up just from recreational use of their own and had actually caused unstable soil that was migrating toward the pond and into the pond and then into the wetland adjacent to the area as well. There were some stockpiles as well within the resource area. So the property owner was very willing to repair things, put out the boulders the next day. And they have reached out to me as of today to say that if I do another site visit prior to their notice of intent being submitted. In addition to that, the commission has the ability to always issue fines, but in this case where they have been responsive, unless the site is completely torn up again when I go out to see it, I wouldn't at this time be suggesting fines. But again, if it is torn up and no work has been done, that's different. But that is not the case. Like I said, they had been working on it the next day. So for that, if you could do the typical memorialization of the enforcement order for 100 East End Road, that would be helpful. And then I can put that in the signature packets after the meeting.
Sure. So would it simply be a roll call to issue an enforcement order for 100 East End Road for violations? All right. In that case, I would like to call a roll call vote of the Bolton Conservation Commission to issue an enforcement order for 100 East End Road to deal with the issues that were described previously at this meeting. All those in favor, please say aye, and we'll start with Bill.
Aye.
Paul,
Aye.
Jillian,
Aye.
Jim, suspenseful.
I think he said aye and it was muted.
I gotcha.
Me, I'm sorry, aye.
Thanks,
Sorry,
Jim.
Jim.
Sorry about that.
And Rebecca, I'm an aye as well.
Thank you. Do you want me to give the update for 472?
For Sugar Road, please.
So for 472 Sugar Road, some of the commission members were out on site for the site visit for the, excuse me, the notice of intent that is before us or before you all that you had just made a decision on. While we were out on site, the applicant did make the commission aware, they were very upfront about it, that the spillway boards had started to fail. They have a dam on their property that is permitted and actually existed prior to the Wetlands Protection Act. So the boards needed to be replaced and repaired. In order to do that, they had to build a temporary cofferdam to hold back the water slightly from the dam so that they could remove the boards and then replace them with intact boards that were no longer rotted. So no vegetation was to be removed, no infrastructure added other than the boards themselves into the existing slot for the spillway. And they had already started that work when we were out there, so the enforcement order allowed them to finalize their repair. But again, in this situation, they are required to file an after the fact notice of intent. So the commission has documented exactly what was done, exactly how the cofferdam was installed and removed, exactly what was put in place and removed from the spillway. So this was more an administrative after the fact note, after the fact enforcement order, so that we would have the documentation of the work done on the site.
Thank you. And I was gonna say, I was on that site visit as well. And again, the applicant was very upfront. It was pretty clear what work needed to get done. And as Rebecca said, this was kind of an administrative enforcement order to try to let them speed the process along. That said, did anybody have any comments or questions about this enforcement order? And seeing none, all right, I'd like to call a roll call vote of the Bolton Conservation Commission to issue an enforcement order for 472 Sugar Road for violations as previously discussed at this meeting. All those in favor, please say aye, and we'll start with Bill.
Aye.
Paul,
Aye.
Jillian,
Aye.
Jim,
Aye.
and Rebecca, I'm an aye as well.
Thank you.
So some time, do you want to get into some of the land updates?
Yes, I do actually.
Thank
So I think the easiest for you to address, or the least amount of detail, is on the Tadmore Trail. So this is the Wilder, adjacent to the Wilder Conservation Area. There's that new subdivision from Tadmore. And previously you had authorized the use of wood chips throughout the section of the trail that was relatively steep and had some roots sticking out. And that was from the Tadmore cul-de-sac or Goose Pond Path cul-de-sac down to the upland area.
Yep.
The developer actually is donating the clean wood chips, which is great and appreciated, but they actually are most likely bringing more than necessary for that concentrated area. So the volunteers of the Bolton Trails Committee asked that I come back to you so that they could use the wood chips along the whole trail and also on the property specific to Fawn Hills at the Woodside Drive entrance. And obviously understanding that if it's through a jurisdictional area on the trail and we're adding material, a notice of intent or an RDA may be required. And so I just asked that you provide that authorization through a vote. So if you're comfortable with the use of the wood chips on other properties in the entirety of that trail, to take a vote for that. and just authorize me to file the notice of intent or RDA as necessary. And or if you're not comfortable in the entirety of the
Or concerns from other commission members regarding allowing them to use these wood chips along different areas of trail, different conservation properties?
I have no concern.
Okay,
Oh, sounds good.
all right. Rebecca, do you have, it doesn't appear you have any concerns, but would you have any concerns really?
I don't, other than just making sure that we're filing because DEP still wants us to file for trail maintenance, management activities, and invasive species maintenance activities as well. So I guess that's my only concern, is just making sure that we're doing things correctly so that we have no issues going forward. But in terms of the chips themselves, I don't. The developer actually has gone through some effort to find clean wood chips that have zero question as to being contaminated or bringing in invasive species or anything like that.
Okay, in that case, I think I'd like to call a roll call vote of the commission to authorize the Bolton Trails Committee to use the donated clean wood chips from the Tadmore subdivision on other conservation properties or further along that Tadmore Trail as needed, and to authorize our conservation agent to file any RDAs or NOIs for said projects as necessary. All those in favor, please say aye, starting with Bill Payne,
Aye.
Paul Brandball,
Aye.
Jillian Glassnose,
Aye.
and Jim Garahy.
Aye.
All right, Rebecca, I am an aye as well, I should say. Okay, and do you want to continue down those updates real quick?
I can do that.
Okay,
The other item, I'm actually going, I guess, from the bottom up on that list. So I do apologize. So the Powder House Conservation Area item is specific to trail maintenance from in a butter. They have apparently been doing this for years. They go out and remove rocks from the trail. This is coming from Quail Run basically to the gas line behind Town Hall, and then continuing down to the town road that's not technically a road anymore, that runs adjacent to Town Hall and through over to Golden Run. That is now a trail. So he's gone through in the past and removed down wood, dead wood, removed, like I said, rocks from the trail and dug them up. He was not able to do it manually, and so therefore he brought his tractor out. I had received a call from a concerned resident about the tractor tires and violation essentially of the conservation property. I was able to locate the property owner who conducted the work, who obviously expressed that they're maintaining the trail as they have done for years. And I just expressed that the commission didn't have anything on file or communicated to them that, one, this individual wanted to help, which we're thankful for, but we also have to do it in compliance with the rules and regulations of the conservation property. So I did thank him for the intent, because I think it was a good intent. I don't think it was a malicious in any way. But so this evening, I would ask that the commission either vote or make some sort of a decision on whether or not you are comfortable allowing this individual to take their tractor Kubota out to maintain the trails, and if they are allowed to remove rocks from the trail or remove trees as well. And the reason I ask that is because the work that was done, again, I appreciate very much the help on maintaining the trails, but removing rocks and things, obviously it creates a very large mess, which is fine, but there's also benefits to having some of those natural features there, both for habitat and ecological reasons. So up to the commission, and I'm comfortable either way, but we do just need it documented so that we don't have individuals out on properties doing things that the commission doesn't know about, that's unauthorized. And I continue to get calls from concerned citizens. Additionally, as part of the rules and regulations, it's prohibited to use motorized vehicles on conservation land, which is another point that I did bring up. Again, at times, we have used motorized vehicles to get into a property like at Bowers. We might bring something down and bring it back. So there may be instances where the commission's maintaining these properties to use motorized vehicles, but where it explicitly says not to, I'm not comfortable without your authorization furthering that.
I'll be curious what other commission members think on this one. It's so difficult because again, I'm with you 100%. Like, I really appreciate that somebody's willing to take their time and put significant effort into just basic trail maintenance. But it seems like that's some, seems like there's some, it's a little bit more than just maintenance almost. It almost feels like terraform, not terraforming, but we maintain a lot of natural pathways and trails. It seems like bringing a Kubota in that you're really going to get something more flat and level. But again, I'm not sure. I'm trying to picture the area and where exactly it was. I know I've hiked those trails a bunch of times. It's a curious one for me because again, if they've been doing, especially if they've been doing it for years, I'd love to allow them to keep doing it. It is a boon, but I get nervous when I hear tractors and removing trees and removing rocks with tractors. Other commission members have thoughts, comments?
Do we have any like general guidelines on how trails should be maintained? What should be removed and what shouldn't?
That's a great question, Paul. That's actually a question that we've dealt with in the past, and typically it depends on the trail, it depends on the property, because we have trails that it's like Brian said, it's a footpath. It's not, we're not advertising for specific uses. We're not making them wide enough necessarily for even an ATV to get through. Now going forward, we're trying to, because of some conversations that we've had in the past for public safety reasons, trying to maintain the more mature woody vegetation. And so keeping mature woody vegetation at least 5 feet away from the trail. So if someone does need to get in there for emergency reasons, it's just some seedlings and it's a little bit easier. But in terms of our regular maintenance of trails, no, we're not removing rocks. And
Right.
on some of the properties, we're adding material to try and even out. Like at Bowers, for instance, we added some of those loam tailings to get rid of the tripping hazard with the roots. We talked about wood chips, but we have followed like the U.S. Forest Service guides or DCR guides, and those do allow for removal of rocks to allow for that smoother surface. But again, there's times when you do that and times when you don't, and it's very clear in those guidelines.
Do we have any similar
see-
situation? Sorry.
Okay, Paul.
Do we have any similar situation where we have volunteers doing trail maintenance on a regular basis, or are they more like ad hoc when we need help? We ask and people come out.
No, so our the Bolton Trails Committee is a group of organized volunteers who regularly go out and steward the properties, or the trails, which is absolutely excellent and very much appreciated. But they use hand tools. They're not out on motorized vehicles. They're not out, using Kubotas unless it's been previously approved. Like again, the one instance we've had over at Bowers where we've used it, but it's on the existing access road in.
Okay. Could we have this individual can maybe collaborate with that group instead of, asking for permission or whatever from us to do this, maybe? or whatever
So
the rules are.
The issue with that is that they don't have any authority
Yeah,
over what's being done because they're a volunteer group. And that's where the difficulty arises, because they would still have to come back to the commission for authorization. What they do is they maintain the trails, they do mapping, they do an extent. I don't mean that to demean anything about what they do, because they do an immense amount of work that's very appreciated. But in terms of like new projects, if it's jurisdictional and it's outside of regular maintenance of an existing trail, if there's a new trail proposed, they have to come back to Concom. If there's a new crossing necessary, they have to come back to Concom if the material's changing. So that's why it's a question to you all instead of to the volunteer group.
Jillian, did you have a comment?
Similar to Paul, just one, can they coordinate with Bolton Trails Committee? And then is the person willing to still do some of the work, like the use of the Kubota for removing down trees so they're crossing the path? Thumbs up, right? Like that would be very helpful. Some of them are very big sometimes, but maybe not. So I guess it's just the guidelines, not removing rocks so that we have earth shifting, water now changes directions on hills, things like that. So I guess it's just the guidelines. I mean, again, I'm with you, Rebecca. Love that they're willing to put forth the help and the effort, just maybe with a little evidence.
Rebecca, would we have the ability to empower you, in other words, to be able to say if we allow this person to perform regular maintenance, which is the stuff we generally don't need to file for, that they're allowed to perform regular maintenance on the trail, but if at any point in time they wish to use a motorized vehicle or machinery to perform said maintenance, that they need to first check in with the town's conservation agent, and that, you know, depending on what they're asking, you feel empowered to say, yeah, that's a fine limited use, or if you think it's maybe more than we've done in the past, it's something you want to bring to the commission.
I think that would be fine if the commission's comfortable with that. And I think that's fair along with how we treat our other properties.
Would that work for commission members? Commission members comfortable with that? Other thoughts, comments?
I just had one thought, Brian.
Please.
When he's removing trees, is he removing trees that were down on the trail? Because most trails that I see, we just cut the trees up and push them off to the side and let, you know, the wood go back to the earth. Is he pulling the trees out for firewood or something like that, Rebecca?
Nope, not to my knowledge. He is pulling them, for instance, if it's over the trail, yes, he's moving it off of the trail. But also if it's like leaning and not on the ground yet, pushing those down and making sure that they're on the ground instead of hanging. But I don't know that that necessarily is within the maintenance, because if it's not on the trail, I don't know that that's necessarily a problem. So that, I guess that would be the answer to your question in one way.
Yeah, I think that answered it.
Okay.
Yeah, I would assume that it's an assumption, right? That he's got a bucket on it. He's throwing things in the bucket so he doesn't have to drag things out is my kind of guess. But, you know, pulling up rocks and whatnot, that makes me a little uncomfortable.
All right. So are we all basically comfortable with him doing regular hand maintenance? But if he wants to use the Kubota, or if he wants to use any kind of powered vehicle, that he needs to run it by Rebecca first?
Yeah, I can agree with that.
That makes sense.
Yep.
All right.
That sounds good.
All right. Rebecca, is conversation good enough, or is this something we should memorialize?
I would memorialize it in a roll call.
Sure.
Just because then I confirm that I can
Yep.
confirm that with that individual.
Just referring to the individual as far as memorializing this, seeing the individual who's historically been doing trail maintenance on the Powder House Conservation Area.
Yeah, I think, well, and I guess that begs the question before you do that is,
Yeah,
do you want to just say maintenance of the Powder House trail over town-owned land, because it does go over the trust land too?
sure.
But the part he's maintaining is on town land. Authorizing trail maintenance, and if it's beyond that, basically just taking what you said, and instead of specifying it to this particular case, you
Mhm.
can just broaden it to just that property in general.
Sure.
Okay. If you're
Sure.
comfortable with that.
I think so. And let me see if I can get it out right though. All right. So I'd like to call a roll call vote of the Conservation Commission that we allow on the town-owned portions of the Powder House Conservation Land, individuals who are interested in doing regular maintenance are allowed to do so, but if they wish to use any motorized vehicles or equipment, must first seek permission from the town's conservation agent, who will be empowered to decide whether it is regular maintenance and allowed, or if it is something that she should come to the commission with. All those in favor of that, please say aye, and we'll start with Bill.
So you said motorized vehicles and power equipment, both?
I think I did, yes.
Okay. I agree. I'm an aye.
Okay. Paul Brandvold,
Aye.
Jillian Glassnose,
Aye.
and Jim Garrity,
I,
and Rebecca, I'm an aye as well. I think we can go back to 7:45, yay. Yep. All right.
7:45, we already addressed technically. That
472.
was 472 Sugar Road.
Yep.
So we have 357 Main Street at 8, which we're close to. If you want, I can start talking about Fifeshire.
No, that would be, do you say 7:45? Oh, sorry.
Oh, sorry.
Did we already get through 472 sugar? Or did we do 478 sugar?
No, we did 578 sugar
578,
and
sorry.
472.
Okay.
So 472 we did first, because on the old agenda it was second.
Okay. All right. Well, in that case, yeah, if you want to continue down through the updates, that would be great.
Okay. So the other update we had was the Fifeshire Bridge. We had a report that the railing was, so this is as you enter, I'm going to pull this up. If I can. As you enter into the Fifeshire Dam property. Can everyone see my screen?
I can, yes.
Okay, so here's the Fifeshire Dam, Fifeshire Conservation Area property. This is 117 here, an associated trailhead. As you enter into the property heading south towards the smaller pond, also known as Mosquito Pond, you take a right and you head west towards Fotini's is over here. Towards Fotini's, and there's a bridge after you come down a hill. That bridge is over a wetland resource area, obviously, and an intermittent stream. The railing on it has failed, and right after, within the same weekend, a tree fell on the same bridge. So this is what it looks like today. We have, can you still see my screen?
Yes.
Okay. We have put up some signage at both the entrance, the minor entrance off of Wattaquatic Hill Road by Fotini's, and at the intersection of the main trailhead and this trail intersection. So when we went out and looked at it, we realized a lot of these boards can actually be reused. So what is being proposed is, can we do the repair work that is just replacing these boards quite literally in place and just using screws instead of galvanized nails, which have rusted at this point because the bridge has been in place and functional for so long. We also want to put these railings on top of the posts versus inside to give a little bit more room there. We're proposing to put curbing at the base here. And so this is what we are proposing. And then the part that requires a notice of intent, which I am respectfully requesting authorization to file, is that we need to replace the footings. So that's what this is representing, is the ground, the footings. And this is what the footing looks like on 4. So we're only replacing 4 footings, the rest are fine and were installed properly. This, we're unsure why these were installed differently. We feel that the others were a repair, so therefore that's why it differs slightly. But it does take sonotube, and what we would be looking to do, these are the properly installed footings. As you can tell, they're still intact. They have the clips on them that are holding them in place. So this is essentially what we're looking to do on the 4 failed footings, while also repairing this. The area here that you're looking at where the tree had fallen over the bridge, those footings do not need to be replaced. So that's why we're requesting if we have it in our budget, to purchase some screws that we can be using to replace the galvanized nails, pull the boards, put in new stringers, put the boards back down. Again, this is not touching the ground. This is about a foot or 2 above the ground. Put in curbing, reinstall the railing, and then as part of the notice of intent, we'd like to repair and replace the footings. So it's twofold. I guess the request this evening would be to authorize or approve, if you so choose, the repair of the bridge that is not altering any resource area. And then the second is to authorize me to file the notice of intent for the footings that are required to be replaced, which obviously are altering the resource area, but are replacing in kind what is there now. Any questions? I know that was a lot of information.
Yeah, I'm guessing the answer to this one is budgetary. But do we ever consider using those screw-in footings rather than the sonotubes and the cement? But
so I can definitely ask that question to the individual who was confirming that. They suggested not, because it would be difficult to basically have them placed again and make sure it was solid footing, where with this, they believe that we can at least support it while we're replacing the sonotube and then putting it in place again. But again, DEP may not allow that either. So if the commission prefers one way or over another, we will certainly go with that method. But that was suggested and sort of discouraged. But to your note, Brian, it is at times less of an impact, but it does have to go deeper, I believe, than the sonotube. So I guess that's the give and take.
And I don't know if it's just hand power. Well, I was going to say you can probably get the machinery in there, not machinery, but I'm trying to think of what you would need to actually drive it in. I don't know if you can just hand power it in the whole way.
I don't know. And it would take some vegetation clearing to get a mini in there, but not terribly difficult.
But you know, regardless for this project, the fact that half it's already sonotube fittings, you know, I don't have a problem with with us using that for the other footings. just curious in the future, what, and I'm happy to hear that it was actually considered or thought about. But I think, I say just price, ease of use, and the fact that we already have normal cement footings there for the rest of it, I don't have an issue with them doing it that way. But other commission members, sorry, have thoughts, comments, fears, questions with any of the repair work as proposed, or Rebecca putting forth an NOI or RDA as far as footings go? All right, not really seeing any. All right. Why don't we do this we'll do 2 votes if possible. So I'd like to call a vote, roll call vote of the Bolton Conservation Commission to allow the repair of the bridge at the Fifeshire Conservation Area that was just discussed at this evening's public meeting to be repaired in the manner in which it was discussed. All those in favor of that, please say aye, starting with Bill.
Aye.
Paul.
Aye.
Jillian.
Aye.
Jim.
Aye.
And Rebecca, I'm an aye as well. And then I'd like to call a roll call vote of the Bolton Conservation Commission to authorize our conservation agent to file any RDAs or NOIs as necessary to complete construction / repair of bridge at the Fifeshire Conservation Area. All those in favor, please say aye. Starting with Bill.
Aye.
Paul.
Aye.
Jillian.
Aye.
Jim.
Aye.
And Rebecca, I'm an aye as well.
Thank you.
That covers them both and brings us to the 8 o'clock hearing, right?
Yes.
Excuse me. All right, so the Bolton Conservation Commission will now continue the public hearing under Mass General Law, Chapter 131, Section 40, and the Bolton Bylaw, Chapter 233, to consider a notice of intent for 357 Main Street, DEP file number 112-0716. I was going to say, do we have an update on this, Rebecca? But if memory serves us, as we had basically continued the meeting so we could draw up our order of conditions.
Yep, that was the case. And in addition to that, so we're incorporating the restoration, or rather the restoration work was incorporated into the draft order. Addition, which included the memorialization of the limit of work, or rather the limit of the resource areas on site, in addition to the remediation work as previously stated. The other item was asking about parking associated for access to the trailhead. The applicant's representative did get back to us on that, and they said their their applicant was not amenable to that at this time due to safety concerns and concerns with their business as well, and just making sure that they can be continuing their efforts and understand who's on the property. The commission has the ability to push back on that and require a condition associated with it and consider that as partial mitigation for alteration to jurisdictional areas or remediation associated with the violation that had occurred, or they can choose to remain silent on that concern. But I do know that is something that has been raised by the Conservation Trust, our volunteers with the Trails Committee, who work alongside myself and the trust when we're working on these townwide projects to understand where we need access, where we need parking, where we need connectivity to other areas in town. So it would be beneficial. I don't know that it would be a crowded area for parking by any means. I don't know how much activity it would get, but I also do understand the applicant's concerns associated with parking for a trail access. But, so I leave that up to you to determine whether or not that should be included in the conditions, or if you're comfortable with them as drafted.
It's a very good question. So other than the car parking, possible car spots, I'm comfortable with the conditions as drafted. I was curious to hear you say that other groups had an interest in parking here. I know it's come up before, trying to find a place to get, 2 spaces in this general area to connect in with the trail there. If it is a key spot that others have identified, it really does help to mediate, especially some of the, basically the wetlands violations that they kind of had to roll into the NOI. I wouldn't mind pushing back. I do understand their concerns, which is the tough part. And I'm wondering if those 2 spots could be along the driveway, not up at the building, but along that initial driveway going in. They can be cut out to the side of one of that, and we would clearly mark them as, Bolton Trail access parking. So there would be no confusion with their customers as to what those spots were for, as opposed to the regular parking lot up at the building.
I just would like to note, Brian, that
Go ahead.
the commission didn't explicitly state during the last meeting where they would prefer them to be. They left that flexible for the applicant for that exact reason, to try to accommodate their concerns. So there is the ability to provide a condition that's that same language, so that, and suggest in the minutes, as you stated, a specific location, but then still leaving it fairly open so that they just have to provide 1 to 2 parking spaces on site for the trailhead.
Yeah, and again, just to make it better on them too, I'd like to leave it open. So, again, they can put it in what they feel is the best place for them. But I'm fine with us pushing back a little bit on that. Again, that amount of fill was a pretty egregious violation. And I know they've been really good at recognizing that it's there and developing the plan to fix it. But I'm fine with us pushing back a little bit on the parking areas. I'm just curious what other commission members think.
Yeah, it seems like there's a lot of parking there. It seems like there's opportunity for 2 spots.
I agree also, Brian. I think we
Agreed.
push back.
Okay. All right. In that case, Rebecca, would it be a question of us kind of going back to them and saying that we kind of want to write this in, seeing if they're amenable working with it, or is this something we would just basically write in tonight and vote on?
You can do either. What I might suggest, because it sounded like the applicant was pretty clear on their feelings for it.
Yeah.
What I would suggest is, due to the commission's feedback this evening, that you just write it in as a condition and state that you're seeing it as mitigation as well, that benefits the adjacent areas and the resource areas on site.
Okay.
Along with, under our local bylaw, we actually have passive recreation as one of the protected jurisdiction, one of the items that we're seeking to protect as part of that bylaw. So it definitely fits in with that, but definitely leaving the location flexible. But I would explicitly state that prior to the certificate of compliance being issued, those parking spaces have to be designated and constructed if necessary, designated and constructed. So meaning, before the commission can sign off and say everything's been done and you're compliant, you're all set with us, those need to be decided, and then it gives them 3 years to figure it out, how they're constructing their site, how their site works. In my opinion, that's fairly reasonable for the commission to both be pushing back and allowing that flexibility.
All right. If that being the case, and I don't know, is the applicant or representative for the applicant here tonight? I don't see. All right. So we wouldn't be able to continue, which is fine, but we could probably close tonight and then vote on it at our next meeting. Right? Or could we even do the meeting next week would be even if we would have a chance to, if you would have a chance to add those conditions into the draft NOI. Okay. All right. So I guess I'm hoping you heard from the commission that yes, we would like you to draft conditions regarding those possible parking spots into the NOI as a form of mitigation for some of the other reasons that we had listed. And then we can vote on it next meeting. So that said, if I'd like to make a motion that we close the public hearing for 357 Main Street, DEP file number 112-0716. Do I hear a second for closing?
Second.
All right, all those in favor, starting with Bill,
Aye.
Paul,
Aye.
Jillian,
Aye.
Jim,
Aye.
and Rebecca, I'm an aye as well.
Great, thank you. And you were comfortable with the flexible parking area location and then up to 3 years and 1 to 2 parking spaces?
Yes.
Okay, just,
Well, yeah, I almost want to say we should really put 2 parking spaces.
okay,
You
so
know,
not less than.
not less than, right? If they want to give us 3, even better.
Yes.
But at
Always
least-
leave flexibility for more.
Yeah,
Okay, and then they'll have up until the expiration of the order of conditions. They won't get a COC. So I'll draft that in and then send it over.
and now here's a question.
Mhm.
As part of that, depending on where the parking spaces end up, we would probably need to create a trail connecting it to the trail system that's there. I mean, it's not far from any of their parking areas, but we would need to connect in some way the parking spots to the conservation area, to the closest conservation area, to the closest trail.
Yep.
And I'm not sure if that needs to be written in as well, so we don't have 2 spots and then we're not allowed to do anything in the woods. Yeah.
Yes, I'm with you on that, Brian. That was an
Okay.
excellent point, and I will draft something along those lines. And we
Excellent.
might need to tweak it, but it'll get the point across.
Yeah, yeah, and I was just saying, hopefully it'll be great for them. Some people will stop to use the trails and they'll be like, "What is this place? Oh, cool, looks nice." I'll check them out online. So hopefully it'll help them too.
Yeah, and I think that's important to highlight too, Brian. The increased visibility, hopefully for them, which may help their business.
And people who like the backcountry like environmental pools. Hopefully,
There's their slogan.
there you go. All right. So I'm sorry. Next up. So the Bolton Conservation Commission will now continue the public hearing under Mass General Law, Chapter 131, Section 40, and the Bolton Bylaw, Chapter 233, to consider a request for determination of applicability for 302 Berlin Road. All right. As an update, I know we all went out for a site visit. From my eyes, seeing, and I should say this is for the construction of a garage and all attached or connecting to each other, 24 by 24 on each of them. This is always a tough one. It's a tough site because everything is within the resource area. Now, we don't have any rules regarding grandfathering properties into anything, and everything can be just taken on its face. There's nothing that says we need to grandfather anybody into anything. But generally speaking, when we've come across houses that were built at a time where the vast majority of the property is currently in the resource area, we've given people a degree of latitude when they're building, especially over existing lawn. So one thing I will say for this project, everything proposed was currently over existing lawn. There is one beautiful mature tree that'll probably have to be removed. The homeowner said it was kind of sick and dying anyways. but for the most part, this entire project at least is over existing lawn. Where the wetlands were marked out on site, they weren't professionally marked out, but from what we could see and from our eyes, it looked like they had hit the key points of where the 25-foot buffer zone would be. The 25-foot no touch, I should say, would be. And the entire project was outside of that no touch area. It's very close to it. But even the applicant at the time mentioned that there may be a possibility to move that project a few feet closer to the existing driveway, and to get it as far away from that corner as possible. So I was gonna say, I guess those were kind of my observations out there. This is a relatively large project. Again, we have people propose things like this, but usually it's a smaller shed, or it's a 2-car garage. This is technically 24 by 48. The biggest concern I would normally have with that would be roof runoff. Basically, how do we mitigate all the water coming off this structure that was just kind of normally infiltrating? But just the way that the land is kind of set up there, everything's going to come off that roof and infiltrate kind of anyways. Dry wells, I don't think kind of work there because it's already on such basically a wet plain. I think they're going to get down to groundwater fairly quick if they try to dig in anywhere. I was trying to think of good ways to mitigate that, and I'm curious to hear other people's thoughts first, and I'll see if I can organize more thoughts surrounding that as we go. And I'm curious to hear Rebecca's thoughts after the site visit as well. But let me open it up. Other commission members have initial thoughts, comments, or questions?
So Brian, on the minutes for tonight, it says 24 by 24 foot garage. It's 24 by 48.
It's a 24 by 24 garage and a 24 by 24 shed next to each other. So basically the total area we're talking about is 24 by 48. Does that make sense?
That makes sense.
Yeah, I think it's really one structure, to be honest. And they're gonna have a garage in one end, and they're gonna have a shed in the back of it.
That's right. It's just going to have a doorway in between the two buildings, so it's going to be one structure.
Yeah, single roof, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Other questions?
Brian,
Go ahead.
My concern is the same as yours, is just roof runoff, and the best way to mitigate that. I don't know the site that well. I wasn't on the site visit, so I don't know if there is any room. I don't know which way it's heading, away from the resource area. If there's, that's a lot of roof. So I don't think rain barrels are really going to do much for over 1,000 square feet. So I don't know if there are other instances, Rebecca, for a building or for a structure of that size, if there have been other suggestions for mitigation.
There have been, so I guess taking half a step back here is typically the RDA is used for, is this work jurisdictional? Is it not? Is the area delineated properly? Is it not? The commission, when they're issuing a decision, issues a negative determination if they feel it's exempt, can be conditioned under 1 or 2 conditions, or if it's found to be non-jurisdictional, or to confirm the delineation. The positive is for a notice of intent, which then would follow the process that we typically see, where we issue the typical boilerplate order of conditions with conditions specific to the property. So I just want to back up for a second and highlight that. And this is an RDA, not for any particular purpose other than just making sure we're understanding the process we're in. Regarding the runoff, yes, that's definitely something we've seen, is redirecting to a dry hydrant, redirecting away from the jurisdictional area. As we've seen earlier this year, a couple months ago, some individuals install rain gardens to allow for infiltration, but in this particular circumstance, you'd be essentially taking it from the area of the garage, which is relatively flat, almost like a plateau, before it then drops again into the wetland slightly, or directing it slightly further upland toward, they have a garden area there and basically their backyard, and either directing it to an infiltration area, whether that be a rain garden or dry hydrant-like infrastructure. But I guess that would be the answer to your question, Jillian, is really just directing it away from the jurisdictional area so that it has time to infiltrate and basically slow down the velocity before it hits the resource area or before it hits the ground and then hits into the resource area.
Thank you.
Other comments, questions from commission members?
Has there been any conversation as to a smaller structure?
There hasn't yet, and I guess I can ask that to the applicant. Would you consider possibly a smaller structure?
We're going on a structure that the smallest that can suit our needs. Our house, the way it's situated, has basically, we're not using a garage, so a 2-car garage. And my wife's, she does craft fairs, and her inventory is gonna use up the space for the shed portion. It just makes sense to have a 2-car. I mean, to go down to a 1-car garage would be, it wouldn't suit our needs. I mean, and 1.5 cars, would not suit our needs either.
Other questions or comments from members of the commission? See none. Rebecca, did you have any comments or questions or any further thoughts from post-site visit regarding this project?
I did. I felt when I was reviewing it that it does in fact seem jurisdictional to the commission, unless the commission feels that it is taking a previously altered area, disturbed area, and changing it into another type of alteration, which at times the commission has considered. But that's one thing. And the other item would be, I also was interested in seeing more information, or at least the commission conditioning stormwater, addressing stormwater runoff coming off the roof, coming off the structure, because now you're taking a semi-pervious area, but mostly pervious area, and making it impervious, and what's going to happen with that. We already said the site's relatively wet on that side of the house, but again, it's not in the wetland. And lastly, same thing, the size of the structure. Although I do completely understand the needs expressed by the applicant and the site, I would just echo to the commission what we typically hear, and that is that, you know, the commission has the ability to push back on that and say, because of adverse impacts to the resource area or implications on the resource area, you simply can't have this large of a structure there, unfortunately, because of the impacts to those resource areas in the interests of the act and the local bylaw. I'm not saying that's what the commission's proposing, nor suggesting to the commission at this time to do so, but just a good reminder that that is in fact what the commission has the ability to do, whether it's adjacent upland resource area, bordering vegetated wetland, or the riverfront area. And in this case, we're just dealing with the adjacent upland resource area and the associated buffer zone under the State Wetlands Protection Act, and the adjacent upland resource area under our bylaw. But so those were the thoughts around my mind. I did think that the applicant did an excellent job when we were on site, marking out exactly where things were going to go, addressing how they could be pulling things a little bit closer into like the driveway and the existing structure itself, and really making it clear out on site where things were going to go in proximity to the resource area. So I did definitely appreciate that at the site visit.
All right. So, sorry, any further thoughts, comments, questions from commission members after hearing what Rebecca had just said?
Yeah, I still have one question for the applicant. I mean, instead of, going to a 1.5 car garage, what if you went 18 by 24 for the craft side of the building? I mean, is it possible we can minimize the overall size of the building that's being proposed?
And I'll put that out there to the applicants. Is that something you'd be willing to get back a little bit on the
It's something that we could look into, but we've really done some research and with my business and stuff. Our house doesn't have a basement or an attic for us to store anything. And so we're finding it that this kind of size structure we wanted to keep it as compact as we could. We're all for anything that we need to do to disperse that water, the pumps or drains or anything that needs to be done. I'm sorry, I'm in the parking lot of the Boy Scouts meeting at the Common right now, so I'm a little dark here. It's possible to, it's possible to look into it, but we've kind of done a bunch of research, and with not having any attic or basement storage per se in our house, this is kind of the size that would really benefit us. So if we didn't have to, we would really prefer not to, but we also understand, and if it's go smaller or nothing, obviously, but it really would the size would be absolutely for us, 24 by 24 on the back.
Further comments from commission members? I should ask quick too, any members of the public here tonight to comment on this particular hearing? And I'm not seeing any.
No.
You've just got me in the parking lot of the Common and Tom in a hotel room in Puerto Rico right now. So we're all coming together from everywhere.
Great, yeah. All right. Trying to think where the best place that where this actually leaves us. If we were going to, well, I was trying to think of ways for runoff mitigation, basically different ways in which we could do runoff mitigation. But it would be difficult for us to try to write that in tonight as we're talking. It might be something where we should, and again, Rebecca, I might turn to you for the best verbiage. Looking for ways that we can try to condition that or put in different options to deal with runoff. I guess what I'm trying to think is, and Rebecca, you might know the answer to this, is it possible if we continue the hearing, can we continue it till next week? Can we get it on the next hearing?
Yeah.
Do we still have time for that?
Yes, so the agendas, so the short answer is yes, Brian, the agendas have to be posted 48 hours in advance.
Yep.
Our agendas are posted Thursday prior because we have our meetings on Tuesday. So therefore it has to meet. The weekend doesn't count. So with that being said, the new items had to be re-advertised because they weren't open yet. Ones that are open just follow that 48-hour rule.
Brian, if I
Please go ahead, Tom.
we are willing to install mitigation means. We just don't know what they are.
That's so usually what I'd be asking is, depending upon the applicant, like, all right, can you basically get a plan for that and everything, and then come back with the new plan so we can take a look and go through it then. I'm just worried, like, time frame wise, I know that's not a lot of time to come up with an exact option, but our other option sometimes is to leave it open, to give 2 or 3 different ways, whether it's a dry well, whether it is rain garden plus something else. It's just very difficult for us to write that in as conditions. Usually we like to approve it as it's been kind of written and presented. And again, I'm curious from other commission members what their thoughts are. Do you think that's something that we could basically do, is see if we can't get an extended plan for mitigation, specifically runoff? I think that's our biggest concern. I was gonna say, if anybody, all right, I'm not really seeing anybody with strong thoughts, feelings. Because I suppose I could leave it with both of us asking, look, if you could kind of sketch out something that might work, that would be great. But in the interim too, I might be able to just, again, work with Rebecca and try to work on some of the verbiage that we could install for conditions that allow for basically 2 or 3 different mitigation plans, all of which we would be comfortable with, all of which would kind of work. And that would give you an opportunity to choose which one works best for your site. I just would need to make sure I get in touch with you this week, Rebecca, because we would really need to sketch out how that would need to be written. But I am fine doing that. I was gonna say, Rebecca, if you had thoughts, comments, questions.
I was going to say, I do have some time tomorrow.
Okay.
Because as of earlier today, I didn't have any meetings tomorrow. But so that being said, I can certainly draft something, Brian, and send it over to you tomorrow before I send it out to the rest of the commission. But that would require continuation until October 4th so that we're able to do that. But I think we can approach it in the way you suggested, if the rest of the commission would like to do so, and just pull from other applications as far as what has been proposed. I wouldn't suggest, and this is to the applicant as well, typically the commission does not provide an exact requirement. What they'll say is, like Brian said, give a couple options of similar things you can do, but it just has to provide the function to protect the resource area, meet the performance standards, and protect the interests of both the bylaw and the Wetlands Protection Act. So typically, for instance, like paralleling it to memorialization of a limit of work, the commission puts in as a condition, you can memorialize the limit of work through split rail fencing, boulders, or another option, so that the applicant has the ability to choose. But if you think of, or if someone comes up with a better option, you also have the ability to come back to the commission and say, this will perform the exact same way, it's better for the site because of X, and just making sure that that's communicated to the commission.
Does that make sense to the applicants?
Yeah, and
Okay.
any help that you guys can, that you can give to, we're open to making this work, and we want to do it the right way, and we want to make sure that the wetlands that we have, is is protected, where that's bottom line there. Secondly, I need my shed. I want my shed, so we'll do anything. But yeah, that would be amazing if you could give us any help possible. You know, Tom's away in Puerto Rico, so he's not a lot of help this week, and so in this regard, of course, in other regards, he is. But yeah, any help that you could come with and let us know, and we're willing to work with anything we can to figure it out and get it so that everybody's happy.
All right. So other commission members comfortable with continuing to next week, writing in basically ways that we'd like to see mitigation possibly handled, basically to make sure we meet all the performance standards?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay. And then I take it from Jeanette and Tom, you guys are okay with us continuing it until our next meeting? Beautiful. All right, in that case.
Yeah, that's fine, Brian. And if you want to do another site, if anyone wants to do another site visit, they're welcome to come by.
Yeah, I'm home most days during the day and the evening. Anytime anyone wants to, if it's just one or two of you or anything like that, to come over and take another look, just either email me or text me or anything, and I'll make it work.
All right. Well, we'll have everybody go through, Rebecca. I was going to say, and especially any commission members that haven't been out on that site, that if they'd like to, it's great of the applicants to offer. But I would say just email Rebecca and let Rebecca know if you're interested in going out to see the site again or to see it for the first time. And then Rebecca, I'd ask if you could email the Buttrams and see if we can't figure out a date and time. That said, I'd like to make a motion that we continue the public hearing for 302 Berlin Road. Oh, I'm sorry. Before I start that, Rebecca, what's our first open time next meeting?
I'm just pulling that up to look at it right now, so
Thank you.
bear with me for a moment.
It's October
Now,
4th.
will that be in the minutes and stuff in the agenda? It's talking about the 24 by 24. Is that can that be fixed or changed to the
Yes.
24 by 48? I just don't want to get to the end of this and say, oh, look, we're in this perimeter of the 24 by 24.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
I just want it so that it's going ahead knowing that it's the 24 by 48.
Yes.
Thank you.
So, am I unmuted? Yes, sorry. Yes, I will certainly make that edit. And then in addition to that, Brian, it is 7:45.
7:45. Okay. In that case, I would like to make a motion that we continue the public hearing for 302 Berlin Road until our next public meeting, Tuesday, October 4th at 7:45 p.m. Do I hear a second for continuing?
Second.
All those in favor, starting with Bill,
Aye.
Paul,
Aye.
Jillian,
Aye.
Jim,
Aye.
and Rebecca, I am an aye as well.
Excellent. Thank you so much. So the agenda, as I stated, will be posted as it always is Thursday afternoon for the following Tuesday. So you can look on the town website and be able to find that the login information and where you are on the agenda.
All right, thank you, Commission. We
Have a good night.
appreciate it.
Yeah, we
See you
appreciate it. I'm off to have birthday cake now. It's my birthday.
Oh, happy birthday.
Happy birthday.
Yeah.
Thank you.
That's what everybody loves to do on their birthdays, Conservation Commission meetings. I
Sit,
did
sit
one, I
in,
think,
sit
2
in the
years
parking
ago.
lot
This is my
of the
birthday.
Bolton Common, and hey, it's been an evening, so
Hey,
I
the
get to
Bolton
go home and
Common is
have
a
cake now.
great place to be. Enjoy your night. Good luck.
Thank you so much, guys. Appreciate it.
Rebecca, just looking at the updates, did we actually get through everything or are we missing one?
What one do you think we're missing? But no, I think that's it.
Well, I have an old agenda. You talked about trail connectivity improvement project.
Yep.
Right, we did Powder House Conservation, Tadmore, Five Shire. Nope. Are there any other updates or any other agenda items that we have not discussed this evening?
Not that I'm aware of. The only other update or a quick reminder for the commission is that this Thursday
Yeah.
night via Zoom, I don't believe the agenda's been posted yet, but we are all invited and strongly encouraged to attend the select board meeting. They have invited us to attend again, virtually, to just provide an update on what we've been doing. They're asking all boards and commissions to come before them and just provide them with an update to talk about what we've done, what we're doing now, and sort of into the future, what we're anticipating. I think this is maybe not a new practice, but a practice they're doing before budget starts for developing the budget in the next couple of meetings. So that's, I guess, what I would anticipate on questions. I will certainly be there. I appreciate any of you and all of you, if you would like to attend, to not only interact with the select board, since you may or may not have done so since you've been appointed, and also just to potentially address questions as well in the event that they ask relevant questions. And again, that can be found on the town website, the login information, once it's posted, if it's not already.
I think it's all right. I think I saw it posted today because it was my
Okay.
reminder of, oh yeah. we need to-
Okay.
All right. Any other updates? All right. Any commission members have any new business or just funny stories? All right. Seeing none, I would like to make a motion that we hereby adjourn the Tuesday, September 27, 2022 meeting of the Bolton Conservation Commission. Do I hear a second for adjourning?
I second.
All right, all those in favor, starting with Bill,
Aye.
Paul,
Aye.
Jillian,
Hi.
Jim,
I.
and Rebecca. I am an I as well. Thank you all. Thank you, Rebecca, and everybody have a